Please introduce yourself to the jury.
My name is Michael Nathan Schmit. I'm a criminalist. I work for the Iowa Division of Criminal Investigation Criminalistics Laboratory in Ankeny, Iowa.
For the record, you would spell your last name.
SCHMIT.
And Mr. Schmit, how long have you been a criminalist?
For 17 years.
What is a criminalist?
A criminalist processes evidence collected from a crime scene, or it also goes out to crime scenes to collect and preserve and package evidence. My job specifically at the DCI lab is in the DNA section of the crime laboratory. So I look at a lot of bloody evidence items or sex assault evidence. Any piece
Sir, can you turn kind of this way?
Sure. Any piece of evidence with a stain, blood stain or semen stain, any kind of biological fluid, and then I will attempt to develop a DNA profile from that stain. I also was on the crime lab's crime scene team, so I had to respond to crime scenes throughout the state. Whenever local sheriffs or police departments requested DCI assistance at a scene, then we would get called to go.
Mr. Schmit, can you briefly go through your post-high school education?
I graduated from the University of St. Thomas in St. Paul, Minnesota, with a Bachelor of Arts in Biology, minors in Chemistry and Psychology. In 1998, about a year after I graduated, I started full-time in the crime lab, and the FBI requires that we have at least 8 hours of continuing education related to forensic DNA analysis each year, and I've done that since I've been employed.
Now, as a criminalist, are you a law enforcement officer?
No, I'm a civilian.
Can you explain, you mentioned you work in the DNA section, how many different state laboratory, crime laboratories does the state have?
The DCI is the only crime lab for Iowa that handles DNA evidence and also firearms evidence. Some of the larger cities will do their own crime scenes and do their own fingerprint work and some limited drug cases. But we're the only lab, government public crime lab in the state that processes DNA analysis and firearms examinations.
So if there's a crime scene where some evidence is collected, either by the DCI crime scene team or a law enforcement agency, can they send that evidence to the laboratory to be tested?
Yes, they can.
In what city is it located in?
Ankeny, Iowa.
You mentioned the DNA section where you work. Are there different sections at the DCI laboratory at Ankeny?
Yes, there's a drug chemistry section, and that section would handle marijuana, street drugs like methamphetamine, cocaine, crack. The firearms section I mentioned earlier, they will process firearms or bullets and casings left at scenes and try to match them up with firearms that are found at, for instance, suspects' houses or in suspects' vehicles. There's the toxicology section of the crime lab. They also handles the body fluids, mostly urine. They're looking for date rape type drugs in rape victims. And then blood samples, they'll test for alcohol level in blood. There's also the breath alcohol section of the crime lab. There's a couple of criminalists that travel throughout the state and certify all the breath alcohol instruments located in each of the counties. There's also the photography section of the crime lab, and the latent fingerprint section of the crime lab, and that about covers it.
And you mentioned that there's also a crime scene team that goes to scenes and assists in processing crime scenes. How does that work? How many people are you designated to be on the crime scene team, or are you volunteers?
It's a volunteer position. They will have 2 people on call for a week at a time, and it's 24 hours for 7 days in a row. And you're on call about once every 6 weeks for the entire week. And it's mostly the smaller communities that we go to crime scenes. Also, pretty much any officer-involved shooting, we usually get involved with those too. But it's the smaller counties and towns that have not too many homicides, or if it's a very complex case, some of the larger cities will call us in occasionally too.
And Mr. Schmit, when did you get involved in this case?
It was November of 2012. I was on call that week, and Special Agent in Charge Rich Mortvet. Special Agent in Charge Rich Mortvet called me and said that they needed a crime scene team to respond to a crime scene in Sac City.
And would have been November 5th of 2012?
Yes.
So So who was your person that went with you to the crime scene?
Stacy Prawl was the evidence technician that came with me to that crime scene.
And when you arrived at the crime scene, do you remember approximately what time of day it was?
It was about 9 o'clock that night, 9:05.
When you got to the crime scene or got to the home, did you talk to law enforcement officers and get some background information?
Yes, I did. I met with the case agent, DCI Special Agent Trent Valletta, and he briefed us on the case facts as they were known at the time.
And what were you asked to do?
We were asked to process a room in a basement at this house where a body was found, basically collect any evidence that may be there, photograph it, and process it for fingerprints.
And would you briefly explain to the jury, when you go to a crime scene, before you process it, is there anything you do and why do you do that?
First, we photograph the scene before disturbing anything. That way we know what things looked like before anything was touched or moved. We try to capture the scene as it looked before it's going to be disturbed by whatever processing we may do.
Did you do that in this case?
Yes.
When you went to the basement, describe to the jurors what you saw in the basement.
It was dark. We had to bring our own lighting equipment to light up the basement down there. As we came down the steps, we went around the corner, and to the corner of the basement, there was a small room. It had an oil tank in it, a large older water heater, and then a pile of items in a corner. And it was this pile of items that the body was located underneath. Just various items of rubbish, trash, and junk.
So do you start digging through the stuff, collecting stuff before you take pictures?
We took photographs first.
And then what did you do in this case after you took the photographs of the area?
Then we started looking through the items, trying to put them aside for later processing. We ended up processing whatever items we could for fingerprints. We were still at the scene. Some of these items we couldn't process. Some of these items needed lab-controlled conditions or more experience of a fingerprint examiner to examine, for instance, paper items. They could process paper items at the crime lab a lot better than we could process them at the scene. So a lot of paper items were collected and packaged for transport back to the laboratory. But most of the metal items or solid items, we did try to process for fingerprints at the scene. Hard plastic items, detergent bottles, bleach bottles, items like that.
There was pictures earlier, we saw a wooden table. Do you remember seeing a wooden table down there?
Yes.
And did you process that for looking for fingerprints?
Yes, we did.
So you did process that at the scene?
Yes.
So once you process that at the scene, is there any need to take it back to the laboratory?
No, only if we find anything that looks like a fingerprint. And with this case, there really wasn't much. There was a metal furnace panel that had a few apparent fingerprint impressions, and we did package that and bring it back to the lab. But that was the one major item that I thought had any chance of getting any usable fingerprints on.
So as you're removing items in the basement, did you come down to something that was identified as a body?
Yes, we did.
And describe the condition of the body after you move these items off it.
Basically, all I could see were the hands of the body. It was covered in at least one blanket, so I couldn't really see the body very well. I could see the hands, and I could see the shape or the outline of the body. But basically, I'm just going to let the medical examiner take it from there. I don't want to disturb anything. The medical examiner can look at the body in much more controlled conditions and better lighting. So that body was placed in a body bag and sent back to the state medical examiner's office, which is also in Ankeny.
Okay, proceed. Mr. Schmit handed you some photographs. State exhibits 24, 26, 27, 30, 31, 34, and 35, as well as 37 through 46. Are these just some of the photographs you would have taken when you were at the house taking pictures of the area before you collected items and removed items from the back of the basement?
Yes, they are.
You obviously took more photographs than this.
Yes.
Are the photographs in front of you, are these a fair and accurate depiction of how things look either before things were moved and after items were moved from the body?
Yes.
The state would offer into evidence State's Exhibits 24, 26, 27, 30, 31, 34, 35, 37 through 46 inclusive.
No objection, no.
Those are terms we're receiving.
Mr.
I can read it again. 24, 26, 27, 30, 31, 34, 35, 37 through 46 inclusive. Permission to publish, right?
Yes.
Mr. Schmit, will hand you a laser pointer, won't absorb into the TV, but for the diagram. Mr. Schmit, starting with the first photograph, State's Exhibit number 24, can you tell us what this shows?
This is the view looking through the back door to the house. There are two back doors to the house. One that goes right into the kitchen, and that would be this photograph right here. Here's the doorway into the kitchen. The other doorway goes here, which is near the stairs to the basement.
In State's Exhibit number 26,
These were some of the items that were in the kitchen when we arrived at the scene.
and if we look through there, it looks like a doorway in the kitchen that goes into another room. Can you show us on State's Exhibit number 4 where we're looking at?
If you're looking through the doorway to the left in the photograph, then you're looking through this doorway here into the larger living or family room of the house.
State's Exhibit 27.
And this is that larger family room, this area here in the drawing.
State's Exhibit number 30. I'm going to switch diagrams from State's Exhibit 4 to State's Exhibit 6.
Okay, this photograph is in the basement. After coming down the stairs and around the corner, this is the room in the corner of the basement where the body was found. This is looking through the doorway into that room.
And can you show us on the diagram what doorway we're looking
Coming down the stairs and going around the corner here, this is looking in through this doorway right here.
And there's a trash can in this picture, States Exhibit 31. Is that just a different angle of that trash can?
Yes,
And there appears to be items in the trash can.
yes.
And Stage Exhibit number 34.
This is the floor of the corner room in the basement. On the left side of the photograph would be the oil tank, and on the right side would be an older water heater right here. So this is the floor located right here.
We had a previous photograph that was offered in. Stage Exhibit number 33. Are you able to see that?
Yes,
In Stage Exhibit 33, there appears to be what looks like leaves to the table.
yes,
And the next picture, Stage Exhibit 34, looks like they had been removed.
yes. Some of these pictures were taken after items had been removed, so we could see what was behind those items.
So if we see these pictures, this would have been how the table was when you arrived.
That's correct.
And then you did process that table for leg prints.
Yes, we processed the pieces of the table. There were also some table legs, and you can see behind the left leaf of the table, you can see the metal furnace panel I was talking about earlier that was processed as well.
It shows up okay on the screen, just to be clear. You're talking this piece.
Yes,
So you check this piece for fingerprints, you check the table as well.
yes.
Next picture then is Stage Exhibit 35. And Mr. Schmidt, so it's clear, just because the state numbered these doesn't mean this is a sequence you're putting in, correct?
Right.
Because now we're seeing in Stage Exhibit 35, the table's still there.
Yes,
Where in Stage Exhibit 34, we already moved the table.
that's correct.
This is just a state sequencing in photograph.
Yes.
Right? It's not how that you
Yeah, no.
All right. So what does this show, Stage Exhibit 35?
This is getting closer to the wall area of that corner room. This, you can see the edge of the oil tank to the left in the photograph. It's hard to see in this photograph, but right in the middle of the photograph, you can see the hands, the two hands of the body.
Stage Exhibit 37.
These were items that were piled on top of the body when we arrived.
And when we're looking at Stage Exhibit 37, Mr. Coster's head, which direction is it on the photograph?
It would be to the left side.
And if you're looking at Stage Exhibit, I think it's 4 or 6, I'm sorry, 6. Can you show us on the diagram where that would be?
Yes, the head of the body would be here, and the feet would be down here.
Then Stage Exhibit number 38.
This is a close-up of the body. In the upper right-hand corner of the picture, you can see the hands a little bit better. There's a black plastic case towards the left corner of the picture. There's a phone cord near the body in the lower right corner of the picture. And the diagram would be this area right about here.
Then stage exhibit 39.
This was a photograph of the body after we removed most of the items that were piled on top of the body. Here you can just see mostly the cat litter that was piled on top of the body and the outline of the blankets.
So there was cat litter on top of the blankets and around this area?
Yes.
The cat litter wasn't poured on top of the table or anything on the top, it was down by the body?
Yes.
There's something on the right-hand cord, long, what is that?
That looks like some kind of electrical cord.
Stage exhibit number 40.
This photograph shows the head and the hands. It's looking at this area here again. To the left of the photograph is this side of the oil tank. There's also a table leg towards the right side of the photograph, resting on the victim's left wrist.
Stage exhibit 41.
This is another photograph of the same area, the body's hands and head, and that table leg.
There's some paper product to the right of it.
That would be a phone book, and we did bring that back to the lab to have the latent fingerprint section process fingerprints.
Stage exhibit 42.
This is another photograph of the body, basically from the head to the toe.
Is this after you peeled off the items that were on top?
Yes.
And could you tell from this point, was there one blanket or more than one blanket around Mark Costa?
I could see one.
Did you on the back to see if there was a second one?
No.
Why not?
I don't want to disturb the body. I just want to leave that for the medical examiner. That's basically their job. If I were to try and unwrap it, then I might lose something. And this crime scene is very dark. I didn't want to lose, for instance, a bullet or anything. It's just better to leave the body alone and send it to the state medical examiner.
Stage exhibit number 43.
The body was stuck to the floor, so a shovel had to be used to pry it up off the floor.
It looks like, it almost looks like there's a piece of plywood. Is there any plywood under there?
No, it was just stiff and rigid.
Stage exhibit number 44.
This is another photograph showing the body had to be pried off the floor. Basically trying to capture the area underneath the body before the body's moved.
When you lift up, at least on the photograph, it doesn't appear there's anything underneath, any trash items underneath the body.
No.
Doesn't even appear to be any catheter underneath the body.
No.
This is how it was when you lifted up the body.
Yes.
State Exhibit 45.
This is the body as it's being placed in a body bag.
And then you had the body transported, Mark's body transported to the medical examiner's office.
Yes.
I'll show you State Exhibit 46.
This photograph shows most of the items that we processed at the scene for fingerprints. We built a super glue tent around the items and fumed the items with super glue to help develop any fingerprints that may be present on those items.
Just so we get this clear, so these are items that would have been found down in the basement by Mark's body,
Yes.
and you put them in this tent, you build a little wooden structure.
Yeah, it's a PVC pipe and just basically a plastic sheet over it.
And why do you use super glue?
It just helps visualize it helps you visualize the fingerprints on the item and also preserves it. It solidifies it there so you can see it.
So you build this tent and it's enclosed, correct?
Yes.
And then you expose super glue inside the tent.
Yeah, super glue fumes. We heat up the super glue and the fumes will stick to the fingerprints.
Because fingerprints are moisture.
Yes.
And so when you look, after you're done super gluing with the fumes, you go through the items and look to see if you can see what looks like a possible fingerprint.
Yes, and usually you often have to dust after the super glue with fingerprint powder to show the fingerprints even better.
And when you looked at the table, did you find any fingerprints?
No.
Now, does that mean no one ever touched that table?
Not necessarily. The fingerprints are made of moisture, so they're not going to last forever.
And does it depend on how a person, if they touch an item, if they rub their hand against it, does it make a difference on if you can find a print later?
Yes.
You have a bleach bottle, was that on top of the body as well?
There was a bleach bottle near the body. There were some detergent bottles also.
Were you able to get any fingerprints from any of these items?
No, only that metal furnace panel in the upper left corner. That was the only item that we found possible fingerprints on that were worth bringing back to the crime lab. That was worth bringing back to the crime lab.
So when you find something that's a possible fingerprint, did you bring the panel back or did you take a photograph of it?
We brought the panel back, and we did take some additional photographs once we got back to the crime lab of the prints that we found.
Did you take some, these are the items you checked at the scene for fingerprints. Did you collect some evidence that you took back to the lab for testing as well?
Yes.
Do you remember what type of items were taken back?
Remember that there was a ceramic coffee mug. There was a black container that was near the head, RCA TV remote, matchbooks, a roll of plastic wrap, miscellaneous books, paper with writing, a black plastic lid, a watch, a shaving kit, a hat, and some pairs of jeans.
And why are you taking those items back?
Some of those items are for different sections of the crime lab. Some of those items are for the DNA section of the crime lab.
So after you processed the scene at the home, collected the evidence that you needed, did you leave the scene then?
Yes.
Approximately how long did it take to process the scene?
We were there until approximately 4 a.m.
I think you said you got there around 9 o'clock.
Yes,
You stayed there until 4 a.m.
yes, it was about 7 hours.
Your Honor, the next area I want to cover is DNA. Does the court want to take an afternoon break, or do you want me to continue at this point?
Why don't you explain?
Mr. Schmidt, you said you worked in the DNA section, so were there some items that were collected in this case that when you came back to the lab, you were going to look at for DNA evidence?
Yes.
And can you briefly explain to the jury how you look at an item for DNA evidence?
When I have a piece of evidence in the DNA lab, I'll look at it and see if there are any stains, for instance, blood stains that might yield a DNA profile. And I'll take a cutting or a Q-tip type swabbing of that stain and place it in a tube and try to extract the DNA from it and then develop a DNA profile from it. The items in this case were a coffee mug lid. And so for those, I would have swabbed where a person's going to put their mouth on that mug or mug lid and hopefully get some DNA from any saliva that might be there. Testing on both of those items failed to produce any DNA profiles. There was also a watch that I processed, wristwatch, and that failed to produce a DNA profile. There was a shaving kit, and I tested the razor that was found inside the shaving kit. That also failed to produce a profile. There was a hat, and for hats, I'll swab or take a cutting of the headband area of the hat, checking to get DNA that may have been present from the skin cells of whoever was wearing the hat. That also failed to produce a profile.
And if I may interrupt you a second, Mr. Schmidt, the hat that you were looking at, where was that collected from?
That was from a garbage can. In the crime scene photographs, there was a garbage can in the kitchen and then another garbage can down at the room where the body was. And those were items that had been cleared off the body before the crime scene team got there. We also processed those items, and the hat was one of those items from the garbage can.
Do you remember if it was the garbage can in the kitchen or down in the basement?
It doesn't say right here in my report.
There was one of the two garbage cans.
Yes,
Sorry to interrupt you.
that's okay.
What was the next item you looked at?
There was a pair of jeans from the pile on top of the body, and then 2 pairs of jeans from the garbage can. Now there were some stains on all 3 of these pairs of jeans. The jeans from the pile on the body, 9 stains were screened. The screening test did not indicate the presence of blood in those stains.
I'm sorry to interrupt you a second, Mr. Schmidt. So there was a pair of jeans that was on the pile of items on top of our customer's body,
Yes.
not the ones he's wearing.
Right.
Okay. So you looked at those jeans and you found 9 stains.
Yes.
Does that mean that a stain automatically is going to produce a DNA profile?
No. In this case, I was looking for blood stains, and these did not screen positive for blood.
So what did you do?
That leaves us with the 2 pairs of blue jeans from the garbage can. There was a light blue pair of Rustler jeans. One of these stains indicated the presence of blood, but I did an additional screening test, and that did not indicate the presence of human blood. So DNA testing was not performed on that stain. Screening tests on 3 additional stains on a pair of Rustler jeans did not indicate the presence of blood. And then the pair of blue basic editions jeans, that also had a stain that screened positive for the presence of blood, but an additional screening test did not indicate the presence of human blood. So DNA testing was not performed on that stain. An additional stain on the basic editions jeans screened negative for the presence of blood.
So there was 3 pair of jeans. You talked about there was a pair of jeans on top, the items on top, Mark Costin's body. The other two you said came from a garbage can. Again, do you know if it's the kitchen garbage can or the one in the basement?
That was the kitchen garbage can.
Kitchen. Both of those were in the kitchen garbage can?
Yes.
And you mentioned a screening test that was used. Why do you use a screening test?
There are some substances that can look like blood, and so we use a screening test to determine if something may in fact be blood before we're going to go ahead and run DNA on it. Otherwise, we'd be running DNA on a lot more stains than we would be now. For instance, pop, if you let it sit on your dashboard in the car, sometimes can look like blood if it's left to sit out in the sun for a few weeks. It's just one way of eliminating samples that need further testing.
And you said for those two pair of jeans that you found in the garbage can in the kitchen, there was no presence of blood found in either one.
Yes.
Does that mean there was never any blood on the jeans?
If there was, it was too weak to be detected by the screening test that the crime lab is using right now.
Are there factors that affect ability for a screening test or for you to be able to detect DNA evidence?
Time and also environmental conditions. It's good to have stains that contain DNA, have them dry, placed in a temperature-controlled environment. It's not good to have those outside in the sun or in a wet, damp, flooded basement. It's like food that you put in the refrigerator. It keeps longer if it's cold and dry. But if you leave it out on the kitchen table, it's going to rot.
Well, seeing the pictures of the basement, it appears to be dry down there. Do you agree with that?
Yes.
So that condition being dry would be helpful.
Yes.
Does it make a difference if cat litter's anywhere around? Does a cat litter at all affect your ability to get DNA off an item?
I couldn't answer that question.
Don't know.
It could dry out a wet item, so it might help. Yes, I don't know.
How about bleach? Does bleach help you able to detect DNA evidence?
Bleach destroys DNA. We use it in the DNA lab to clean up any possible spills of evidence or DNA extracts that we may have. We use it to clean our work areas so we don't have any contamination. So bleach destroys DNA.
So in all the items that you tested in this case for possible DNA evidence, did you find any DNA evidence?
No.
No other questions? Thank you.
Kevin?
The testing that you did with that tent, that was just for fingerprints, correct?
Yes.
That isn't any kind of DNA testing, correct?
No.
And just because something doesn't have prints on it, doesn't mean it doesn't have evidentiary value, correct?
That's probably correct.
So something can still be useful in investigation even if it doesn't have prints on it, right?
It depends on what you'll be looking for.
Right. But, I mean, fingerprints aren't the end-all, be-all of an investigation, correct?
No.
A lot of other factors that go into the investigation other than fingerprints, right?
Right.
And in this case, we have fingerprints, right?
Just some apparent fingerprints on the first pail, but those turned out to be not suitable for identification.
I don't have any further questions for the witness.
No redirect.
Mr. Counselor?
Thank you.
Can this witness be excused?
Yes.
Excuse, sir? Why don't we take our afternoon break then? Resume about 10 to 3. We're going to the end.